So Tipperary 323, Clare 222 at the Gaelic Grounds in Limerick. It's a win for Tipperary. They booked themselves into the Munster Senior Hurling Final, of course, that will happen in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, look, listen, I didn't watch this game live. I went back and watched it, of course. I was doing a lot of the covering a lot of the action, of course, in Gaelic football today. So I went back and watched this game after the Dublin Wexford game and the Clare Offaly game. But I wasn't going to make a video on this game, but you know what? I witnessed an absolute spectacle of hurling there. A cracking game, a really, really, brilliant display of hurling. And I thought, you know what, let's make a video on it. And obviously, it was a spectacle of hurling, but it was also ruined in many ways by the referee, Owen Connors, who made some very poor decisions in this game. And I think there's a few different points to make here, in my opinion. A lot of people saying, is it the rule, is it the referee, who's to blame here? And a lot of people trying to point the fingers and figure out, who is to blame. I think it's both. I think it's the ref and the rule, in my opinion, because I was listening to Joanne Cantwell there after the game, and she was saying that it doesn't have to be a clear goal scoring opportunity, it just has to be a goal scoring opportunity. And that to me doesn't make any sense, because when the rule was conveyed to the public, and was conveyed to a lot of different fans and obviously the media and players and managers and whatnot, it was always pitched to me as a clear goal scoring opportunity, because that would make sense. If it's a cynical foul and it's a clear goal scoring opportunity, obviously that player is going through on goal and he cynically fouled. If he wasn't cynically fouled, he probably would have scored the goal. So obviously it makes sense to award a penalty to have that player to get that goal scoring opportunity, and then also you're punishing the player who's brought down the attacking player in that moment by giving him a yellow card and the sin bin. Now I don't totally agree with that. I think double jeopardy is just a little bit, it's too harsh in my opinion. But if the rule is goal scoring opportunity, then all of a sudden, I mean, it's going to be kamikaze. There's going to be black card or sin bins handed out left, right, and centre. There's going to be penalties left, right, and centre, and it's not going to make any sense whatsoever. And there was a clear situation at the end of this game as well, where Aaron Shanahan was brought down by Barry Heffernan, and incredibly the referee just did nothing. Bizarre. I mean, everybody I think in the ground who was at that game, and everyone watching it on TV, I think everyone's seen that other than the referee. Umpires are right there as well. Why they don't why they don't even consult the referee and the linesman as well. Very, very strange. And even when he gave this sin bin to Aidan McCarthy for the foul on Jake Morris, he didn't even consult the linesman. He didn't even consult the umpires. Just very bizarre, strange decision from Owen Connors, the referee. And look, listen, did it have an overall impact on the game? Did it change the complexion of the game? It certainly did, because both sides were both sides level at that point, or there wasn't too much between the teams at that point. Actually, I think Clare were in front at that point, actually, as a matter of fact. And so it swung the momentum. Tipperary gained a lot of momentum after that. Obviously Aidan McCarthy had to go off as well, and Aidan McCarthy is such a versatile player. He doesn't just play in the forward line. He drops back. He covers a number of different positions. So to not have his work rate and his engine in the team anymore, it allowed Tipperary to really excel, to push forward more on Clare, and Clare had to change their tactics in many ways to try deal with Tipperary pushing more on them. So it definitely did change the complexion of the game. Was it the sole reason that Clare lost the game? In my opinion, no. I think for Clare, in my opinion anyways, I think in the second half in particular, their shooting just let themselves down. A couple of different stages in that game. Ian Galvin dropped one wide when he started the game brilliantly. Tony Kelly was even missing a couple of chances that he'd normally score. So I think that was kind of one of the main reasons for Clare, and I think they struggled to deal with Tipperary's attacking threat as well. There was a number of times where Eibhear Quilligan had to pull off big saves to keep Tipperary or to keep Clare in the game. If he doesn't make those saves, I think Tipperary probably would have won this game quite comfortably. And let's not forget as well, Tipperary were 7-8 points clear going into the final 10 minutes, and Tipperary didn't score a point in the final 10 minutes. So that was another big reason as well for the scoreline maybe looking a little bit closer than it did. But anyway, my name is Aaron. This is GAA Fan TV. This is the match reaction. So do leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll run through some of the big talking points in the game, of course, as always. Clare certainly started the better in this game. They really did. They came out full throttle. they looked better than what they did last week. I mean, they were good in certain patches against Waterford, but they certainly weren't anywhere near their best. They had 100% accuracy from their shooting inside the first quarter, which was a complete flip to last week when against Waterford they had only 50% accuracy. Now that, unfortunately, that came back to haunt them again later on in the game, but in the first quarter they hit 1-7. Ian Galvin was absolutely superb. He scored 1-2. Ryan Taylor was causing a couple of problems. Aaron Shanahan got himself a point as well. So Clare were really taking the game to Tipperary, and I actually worried for Tipperary inside the opening 5 to 10 minutes, because Tipperary were just really, they didn't look up to the pace of the game, and it kind of reminded me a little bit like what Galway were like against Dublin. Very slow out of blocks. Obviously haven't played a game in 3 weeks. A little bit sluggish. And you were kind of waiting for Tipperary to get it together. And to be fair, they did. They turned the tide massively. Michael Breen obviously got himself a goal. Got himself a point as well. Shamey Callan started becoming more of an influence into the game. Jake Morris hit a point as well. Jason Ford started knocking a few place balls over. And at the water break, both sides were level. And you were kind of thinking, how on earth has this happened? How are Tipperary and Clare both level at 1-7 when Clare have clearly, in many ways been by far the better side? But I think the main kind of story in the game, really, as the game went on, was that Clare's defence struggled to deal with the likes of Shamey Callan, and even the likes of Dan McCormick in there as well. Shamey Callan, I thought, was superb. He really, really was. I mean, look, listen, his goal was a bit of a fluke. He was going for the point, and it was a miss hit, and Eibhear Quilligan misjudged the slitter and went in the back of the net. But I thought it was more his contribution. A couple of different times where he flicked the ball up off the ground into, the likes of Bubbles O'Dwyer, different stages as well, who I thought was tremendous in the game as well. Just his contribution causing so many problems. Clare's defence were struggling to deal with him. John Conlon certainly didn't have as big an influence in this game as he did in the Waterford game. And I think on the other side of that, Cathal Barra of Tipperary done a tremendous job on Tony Kelly. Really kept Tony Kelly's influence to a bare minimum throughout the entirety of the game. Tony Kelly still scored a lot of points from place balls, and still had an influence on the game. Obviously, his goal in the first half was an exceptional goal, very instinctive, slotting it comfortably, of course, beyond Barry Hogan. But as the game went on, obviously with that decision, Aidan McCarthy, of course, getting the sin bin, it just gave Tipperary the momentum, and unfortunately from there, Jason Ford obviously scores the penalty. Tipperary start winning a lot more ball. Shamey Callan gets a goal as well. And Clare were struggling from that point. And even some of Tipperary's bench definitely made an impact as well. Alan Flynn hitting 2 points was fantastic. Willie Connors obviously getting a point as well. And for Clare, they just very much faded towards the end of the game. Maybe not so in the last 10 minutes, but definitely in the second half at different stages, they seemed to lose their momentum. Ian Galvin, as I said, scored 1-2 in the first quarter, only hit a point then for the rest of the game. So certainly his influence started to die off a bit, and he was taken off in the 59th minute because he certainly wasn't having as big an influence in the game. None of Clare's substitutes scored as well, which was obviously another big factor in the game. Cathal Malone was very impressive from a Clare point of view in midfield, hit 2 points. Thought he definitely had an impact in the game. But yeah, in the end, Tipperary get the victory, albeit a bit controversially. And I think if you're a Clare fan, you have to be massively frustrated by the decisions in that game, not getting the penalty at the end. I think it was a 5-point game at that point, so would it have made a big of a difference? There was still 2 minutes left in injury time. It would have been a 2-point game at that point. You know what? I mean, Clare could have pulled it back, and it could have went to extra time. So, and the decision as well, like this to sin bin Aidan McCarthy, just horrendous, absolutely horrendous. The rule horrendous, the referee horrendous, and and unfortunately we were always going to be left with a situation when these rules came in that it was going to affect a massive championship game, and I can only imagine what's going to happen if something like this happens again in a knockout game, maybe in football or hurling, or maybe an All-Ireland final or something like that. Like, just because on full time, obviously Joanne Cantwell's asking the different panelists obviously questions, and about the referee and everything else. We should be talking about the game. You know, we really, really should. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But still a brilliant spectacle of hurling for Tipperary going up against Limerick. That will certainly be an interesting one for Clare going into the qualifiers. Going into the qualifiers is tough at the moment. You know, you have Waterford in there, who Clare beat, to be fair, but you obviously have Galway in there as well. Cork are in there. But I think Clare have shown enough quality for me over the past 2 games that I think they have enough to go far in this in the All Ireland. I think they can go beyond maybe maybe get to an All Ireland quarter final or something to that degree. It will be interesting certainly to see how the game goes, without doubt. But look, listen, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up here. Do leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. There's been a number of match reactions and interviews, of course, after this weekend's game, so do go ahead and check them out. My name is Aaron, and I'll see you later.